Speed 2. Cruise Control is a movie that can appear in almost every negative list imaginable. Destroyed franchise, unbelievable overspending, and one of the worst lead actor replacements in Hollywood history. If the film had suffered from only one or two of these problems, the studio might have escaped disaster. But when you gather the entire deck of bad decisions, the result is inevitable. When the sequel to the massively successful Speed was announced, everyone in Hollywood believed 20th Century Fox had another guaranteed hit on their hands. Nothing suggested trouble. The studio was so confident in Speed that it immediately assigned the sequel a script originally intended for the Die Hard franchise. And you can understand the logic. The first Die Hard earned $140 million. The second made $240. The third made $360. The first Speed, made for $30 million, earned $350 million in 1994. Meanwhile, Die Hard 3 cost $100 million to produce, which means the profit margin on Speed was far more impressive. But there was one small problem with the script. A Pacific cruise ship was a fine location for the Die Hard series, which often relied on confined spaces. But for a film called Speed, a cruise liner was a strange choice. The studio tried to reconsider the main setting, but luck was not on their side. Steven Seagal had just released a film where he kills bad guys on a moving train. Kurt Russell was clearing terrorists on an airplane, an executive decision. And 3 more airplane-themed movies were already in production: Turbulence, Con Air, and Air Force One. After scratching their heads and running out of options, the executives approved the cruise ship idea. Director John DeBon was given full creative freedom and promised an unlimited budget, and the studio kept that promise. The first and biggest problem appeared from nowhere. Keanu Reeves was not going to be in the movie. Many people believe Keanu refused Speed 2 because he wanted to go on tour with his band Dogstar. This is false. During the production of Speed 2, Keanu was filming The Devil's Advocate, and only after those commitments was he free to play music. Reeves says he was not against the idea of Speed 2. But the script kept changing and nobody could tell him when filming would begin. During this confusion, he received the script for The Devil's Advocate, loved it, and signed quickly to prevent anyone else from taking the role. According to him, Fox refused to delay production and, angry at his decision, removed his character from the script and replaced him entirely. Once Reeves left the project, Sandra Bullock also wanted out. The studio could not afford to lose her, so they offered her the biggest paycheck of her career. Bullock also used this moment to secure funding for her long-suffering passion project, Hope Floats, which no studio wanted to finance. In the end, the cost of keeping Sandra Bullock in Speed 2 was enormous: $11 million for the sequel, $11 million for the lead role in Hope Floats, $19 million for production, plus marketing expenses, all because the studio could not afford to let her walk away. Keeping Bullock did not fix anything. Problems kept piling up like an avalanche. Every actor in Hollywood knew Keanu had dropped out, and everyone began rejecting offers to join the sequel. The studio desperately wanted Matthew McConaughey. They offered him a record paycheck of $4 million. McConaughey refused and instead chose Steven Spielberg's Amistad, for which he was paid only $1 million. That movie also bombed. Casting the villain was even worse. Half of Hollywood rejected the role. Gary Oldman was the closest to signing, but he also turned it down and chose Air Force One instead. Eventually, the villain went to Willem Dafoe, and the male lead went to Jason Patric. Later, Patrick claimed he was tricked by the studio and that joining the film ruined his career. He did not like the script, submitted many rewrites, and was promised they would be used. When he arrived on set months later, none of his changes were included, and he could not back out of the contract. He was paid $4.5 million anyway, which was triple his previous career high. Filming ran a month and a half over schedule, adding $20 million to the budget. After John DeBont assembled the rough cut and sent it to the studio, a new problem surfaced. Test audiences hated the film. According to rumors, Speed 2 received the worst test score in the history of 20th Century Fox. The script was rewritten, and the film was sent for reshoots. These lasted more than a month and cost another $20 million. The $100 million movie had now become a $140 million movie. But the nightmare was not over. The rewrites required expensive new visual effects. Completed effects had to be thrown away along with entire scenes. When the new version was shown to a test audience, they still hated it. The studio began cutting the movie again. Even the new footage ended up on the editing room floor. And yes, the film required yet another round of reshoots. The $160 million version of Speed 2 that reached theaters in June 1997 earned only $48 million domestically. Suddenly, the legendary crash of Waterworld in 1995 did not seem so catastrophic after all. Anyone involved in the movie quickly distanced themselves from it. Sandra Bullock called Speed 2 the most expensive piece of nonsense in history. John DeBont blamed Fox, saying the studio forced him to film the worst script imaginable and would not allow him to fix anything in what he called a circus of idiocy. The international box office added another $115 million, but this was not enough to save the film. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Fox lost between $120 and $150 million. These numbers make Speed 2 one of the biggest failures of the 90s. Jason Patric's career ended instantly. Jan de Bont's career was also struck hard. After Speed and Twister, he directed only 2 more films, The Haunting and Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. After the failure of Lara Croft, he left cinema and never directed again. The only person who walked away unharmed was Sandra Bullock. And Keanu Reeves, who was not tied to the film's promotion, quietly moved on to his next project after The Devil's Advocate. That project was The Matrix, a role that originally belonged to Will Smith. That was Frameback. See you on the next Rewind.